Hi, this is Bob Miller over at Bob Miller Realty Group. Today we're going to take a couple minutes and try and cover rent increases. But first, a big question, why have them at all? And the easy answer to that is, especially on a short-term lease, meaning 5 years period of time, you want to see some rent increases because at the expiration of that lease period, you're going to want to relet and retain that tenant. So that tenant is going to be paying the rent that you foresee it to be in 5 years based upon inflation rates of approximately, say, 3%. So it's not going to come to a big shock to that tenant and have a monumental rent increases in year 6. So you want to increase them slowly as time goes along. Now, the various ways of doing that are, for example, fixed rate. So perhaps they're paying $18 per square foot on an annual basis. Year 2, you're just going to bump it a little bit to $18.50. Another way of doing it is just say a 3% compounded annually. 3% is generally used a lot on, say, a 3-year, 5-year lease, 6-year, because that's, if you look at historically, it is usually about a 3% rate. Another way of doing this is on a consumer price index. It's published by the federal government, and it's specific. I suggest you do it specific to the where the property is located. For example, here in the Southwest, you're going to want to use one in the Southwest. You're not going to want a CPI that is, say, in the Northeast part of the country. One thing to be cautious of is to insert in there a minimum maximum. I see this quite a bit where you don't want, as a landlord, you don't want to see that the rent is going to be falling below, say, a 3% or a 2% rate. And of course, if you're going to put in a minimum, you're going to have to put in a maximum as well. Usually you're going to want to put 6-7% in there, just so both parties will feel comfortable with that, to protect themselves against rapid inflation or deflation periods of time. Now, in reality, if things really got screwy like they did in 2008, you're probably going to be renegotiating all of this anyway. But generally speaking, you can have that in a lease that's specific to the area on the consumer price index that's specific. One thing to be cautious of is from the tenant's point of view now, from a triple net and a modified gross lease. These increases that we're discussing is only on the base rent itself. It doesn't take into account any operating expenses for obvious reasons, because that's a separate thing. You're paying your CAM, operating expenses separate from the rent. However, in a full service gross lease, that increase is based upon that flat rate. Say you're paying $2.50 on a monthly basis per year, per month, and that increase is both on the base rent and the operating expenses. And keep in mind, you always have that expense stop or base year staying where it's at. So that full service gross lease is slightly in the landlord's favor when it comes to getting those annual increases. I hope that answers some of your questions. If you have some specific questions, you can always reach me at bobmillerrealtygroup.com. Look forward to hearing from you and answering any of those questions. Thanks.